This video is part 2 of my talk on writing your research findings and data analysis. The video is being made for 4th year students in Makerere University in the Urban Transportation Planning class. So most of what I address is related to that class, but if you are interested, I also talk about some general ideas and points on a good research paper reporting your findings. So before coming to this video, I hope you have watched the previous video so that you know what I'm talking about. All right. So in this video, what I'd like to do is to be more specific about the sections of your data analysis section report. I felt that in the first video, maybe I was too general, and for those who are new to research and reporting your data analysis, might have found it a little bit daunting and confusing to follow what I was talking about. But looking at your papers again, I realized that a lot of you probably are not doing this, you haven't been doing this for a long time, and so everything seems a bit new and confusing when I mentioned them in the first video in a general way. So I want to be a little bit more specific. Okay, so let's start. All right. So your data analysis section is the most important part of your research. This is where you report your original findings from your own research in the field. Consequently, a lot of people will be very interested in this section. In fact, from my experience in academia all these years, 4 years, 5 years, doing research and grading people's papers and reading through people's papers, most times reviewers will jump to your data analysis because it is what you're really writing there that is original in your research. The previous parts that you write are also very important, but it's mostly you're really citing work from other people and you're building up a hierarchy until the data analysis and data reporting. So the data analysis section has a number of sections, important parts that you must use to organize reporting your findings. You have the introduction, a brief introduction. You have the analysis section. Then you have the policy recommendations, and then you have directions for future research. In the introductory section of your data analysis, you introduce the reader to your sample and remind the readers once again about what this research is about, why you're doing it, where you are doing it, and what you hope to achieve by doing it. But all this should be in brief, okay? I am very aware that in your previous sections of your research, you would have already talked about these things, but it's always good to remind the readers again, this is why I'm doing this research. These are the questions that I was trying to answer, and these were my objectives. This is where I conducted the research. These were the number of responses I got. This is why I selected this area. And this is what I hope will come out of the research by conducting my fieldwork in this area. In brief, okay, don't go too much into unnecessary details. If you have data and information about your sample that you want to tell the audience, refer them to the appendix. So your introductory section should go no more than a page and a half. In my previous video, I said only half a page, but I thought, well, I was really thinking more of writing in a journal article, which tends to want you to be more concise. But for this project, which is for a student, I think it is okay to write about a page and a half. If you go 2 pages, then I think you're going too far. But again, like I said, use your judgment. But in my opinion, 2 pages of introduction might be too much. Okay, so that is the introduction. Talk about your sample in brief. Okay, tell us how many people you interviewed. Maybe mention what percentages were male, how many were female, and maybe how many were working and how many were students going to school. But don't tell us every last detail of it. Just give us an overview. If you want to give detail, refer your readers to the appendix. Okay, then after that you come to the analysis section. Okay, so in the analysis section is where you now start reporting the hardcore data. Now at this point it is very important to look at your research questions again. And I'm not talking, when I say research questions, it seems most of you still do not realize the difference between questions on your questionnaire and your research questions. Your research questions are the overarching questions that is guiding this whole research, not questions on your questionnaire. I think this is a point that is not being understood. Okay, so go back to the introductory section of your paper and look at the research questions and your objectives and your goals, and ask yourself, in this data that I am reporting, which one answers these questions? Okay, and the way you report this data is by following almost the process that you went through the research. So begin with the data that is first general, okay, because you want to write a story. So the start with the data that is just general, like, and this is the point where you can look at your questionnaire and say, what were the first questions that I asked? But it should be specifically related to the research questions. And then you can choose the appropriate visualization method to put this data on in your report. So you can choose a pie chart, you can choose a graph, or you can choose a table. But not all visualization tools or methods are the most appropriate for certain type of data. So you have to think carefully, how can I best represent this data? Number 2, if you are representing data on a pie chart, don't draw a table for the same data again. That is not necessary. I noticed some people will draw a pie chart, then they will draw a bar graph, and then the table for the same data, nothing different. Don't do that. Just use one data visualization tool. Okay? Then another thing is when you are doing comparisons in your data. Let's say you're looking at 2 towns. Comparisons are better done off when you are looking at 2 different aspects or study areas, or maybe neighborhoods, or whatever you're doing on one chart. Don't do 2 charts. Okay, and this is where you have to be very careful on how many variables you put on your chart. If you have too many variables, it's going to be difficult to compare 2 different areas on one chart. But if you know what data to put there, if you are very focused and you put only what is important, it should be possible to put all the data on one chart. That makes it easier for the reader to compare. Don't I see some of you like did interviews on 5 different rods or 4 different rods, and you are putting a chart for each of the rods. That makes it very difficult for the reader to follow. So put, for each aspect that you are making an analysis, just use one chart. So if you are analyzing feelings of safety in Kisenyi area, put Kisenyi rod on the same chart, and put Kato rod on the same chart, and then Kabaka rod on the same chart, and then you can do your narrative and compare. Okay, and also when you are reporting the data, don't tell us every last detail that is on the chart. Just tell us what is of interest, what stands out. Okay, and also finally, like I mentioned, it's important to cross-tabulate. Now, one thing I have to make sure is that, okay, it is fine sometimes to report only one aspect of the data alone, but after you do that, it is also probably good to, on the next chart, to put another data point, like maybe say feelings of safety and time people are walking, on the next chart. So maybe the first chart talked about time people like walking. Okay, and then the next chart will be time people like walking and the purpose for which they walk. All right, that kind of builds on that kind of gives you a hierarchical narrative. You're telling a story. So the data should move from basic to more complex analysis, but each chart should build on each other. The previous chart should build on the previous one, and then the next one, and so on and so forth. But I'm seeing some of you doing some analysis, like you're talking about gender and feelings of safety, and then you jump into housing tenure and an employment type, and then 5 pages later you jump again to gender and time of walking. If you're talking about gender and feelings of safety, start with gender, time of walking, gender, feelings of safety, gender, and employment. Just build on the day on each previous chart. I hope I'm making myself clear. Do not put one aspect in this chart and then the next chart is talking about something totally different. Tell a story that builds upon the previous data point and data visualization. Okay, I hope this is clear. All right, so that is your data analysis section. After your data analysis, you want to talk about policy recommendations. That is a different section. So based on all these findings that you have, what policy can we get out of this? Okay, remember in the introductory section of your research, you mentioned justification and significance of your research. So this is the point where you actually justify and show us how significant your research is by telling us the policy recommendation. And then after this, the next section will be future research. Tell us again, what areas has your research covered, and what aspects of it do you think needs to still be covered? Tell the audience that I have done research based on this, on that, and that, and in this area, but I still feel that there's these questions that still need to be covered. So that is future research. With that, you write your conclusions, and that is the end of your data analysis section. Okay? So I hope you have understood what I'm talking about. I know it might be a bit confusing. Making these videos is not very easy. It's probably easier to explain in person when you're having a conversation, but I hope there's some clarity. You can send email to my official email with questions. Okay, now I want to talk about some other aspects that I also noticed in the research paper that needs to be improved upon. The first one is captions. When you write a caption, the font of your caption should always be the same font as the body of the text. So if you're using Times New Roman 12-point font in your paper, the font of your caption should be the same. At least in most conventional academic institutions, they use this method. Do not bold your font. Do not put it in italics. And then when you're writing your font and you say pedestrians walking along a road, don't put something like pedestrians walking along a road in Kampala. Which road is this in Kampala? Tell us what the road is. Okay? Be specific. Tell us pedestrians walking along Makerere Hill Road in Kampala, Uganda. That is specific. And then the source, if it is you, then write the source is field work or field data by author. Okay? And capitalize nouns and names of companies, of people. Don't write people's names in small letters. These are things that are these are conventions that I think was taught in grade school when you're in primary school. And I still see some of you people writing names of companies, names of people, names of organizations in small letters. You need to capitalize them. Okay? So that is about captions. Be specific on your caption. Then number 2, headings. Headings should also be in the similar font and color of font you are writing in the main body of the research. Do not make headings blue and in Calibri font when your main body text is Times New Roman and black. Okay? You need to go to the Word document, up on the ribbon, on the editing ribbon in Word, and set the color to automatic. And you can use automatic numbering. Don't number by yourself. Don't type heading number 1.1. There is a way that you can do auto headings. There's a lot of videos and material on the internet that can help you to do automatic headings using Word. Don't write the headings with your hands. And you can even do automatic table of contents once you use the automatic function in Word for your headings. Learn to do that. That is the proper way to do it. Don't type headings with heading numbering by yourself. Word can do that automatically for you. Even captions, you should use auto caption. You right click the picture and then you put your caption. Okay? Finally, I'd like to talk about the literature review. I know, of course, Makerere has challenges in getting literature books that are current, but I don't think a lot of you have really visited the library, because I visited the library and I was able to get a lot of information about transportation planning. When you are writing your literature review, try to focus the literature related to your study area, on something related to your study area, or to Uganda or East Africa or Africa. Don't write to us, write to the audience, stuff about New Zealand and Australia. I mean, you can mention that in passing, But the bulk of your literature should come, from the region where you are. And I've told many of you very many times that you can use the World Bank website and the United Nations UN Habitat website, which has literature on transportation planning. And it seems that I think some of you are still not going there. But use those resources and use the library. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. And please send me questions to my email if you have anything to ask that is not clear. All right, thank you. Bye.